Welcome to Great Talk and Entertainment. I'm your host, KJ, and this is the podcast where I review movies and TV shows from all your favorite superheroes, including Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and much more. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talk and Entertainment official channel. Now let's go, baby. Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. My name is KJ, and this is my spoiler review for episode 4 for the new Marvel series on Disney Plus, Agatha All Along. This is episode 4. This is a spoiler review. So if you have not seen this, can you please pause this? Give me a thumbs up, because that would help this channel so much, and that would help it get through the YouTube algorithm and will help me get more views. So I appreciate that. Go watch the last episode. Come back and listen to this spoiler review and any of my other past ones, because I would love to hear your guys' opinions, your theories, and how do you feel about this particular Marvel show and much more. So please do that for me, guys. But again, this is a spoiler review, so y'all been warned. Let's get into it. Episode 4 continues on with Agatha looking at Miss Davidson, and she's like, you know what? Time to move on. But I did like the part where she says, man, I didn't think you had it in you. And she winks at the teenager when he asks, what did you say? Alice pays her respects and explains that she's on this road because her mother told her that this would protect her. And she also explains the fact that her mom wrote this ballad song that they've been singing that got them to this road. And it also explains that her fans that went to see Allison's mom, the fans, the crowd was her covenant, like witch covenant. And that's how she got away with this. But we learn that this is pretty deep, and we learn that, you know, she did this for her daughter, and I think Allison feels like this is her fault. So this is why she's on this road. She's trying to do everything she can to honor her mother in a way. And I think the other witches kind of get it, and they kind of understand. So now they feel more, I don't know, they feel more like they need to protect her in a way. Now, they all consider they need another member of this group to help sing this ballad song. And the idea was, who's the other green witch? And Agatha suggests another green witch, and of course they agreed. But even though they thought this was crazy, and there was a lot of funny dialogue, and of course nobody understands what's going on between Agatha and Rio is the green witch who appears. And you know what's crazy? This is what I noticed. So in this episode, in the last episode 3 and 2, and I want to say episode 1, well, you could say episode 1, when they went to the witch's road, they all went like somewhat down. But what was interesting is Rio came up. And at first, I had to rewatch this twice. Not the whole show, but I couldn't remember if Rio came out the ground where they buried Mrs. Davis. But it looked like it wasn't. But why I think that's interesting is because they're going down, where they're going down a slide or going down steps, or within this one, they kind of go down like a ladder, I believe. But whatever the reason is, they're going down and she rises up from the grave, which I thought that was pretty interesting. And I think there's a true meaning to this. But they all ask her if she's the Green Witch, and of course, she goes, I am the Green Witch, and she did it in a weird voice, like Batman, like, I'm the Green Witch, right? And it was just kind of neat. And obviously, they don't know that she's out to get Agatha for revenge. And I just want to say that the cast is definitely my favorite part of this show. Like, everybody on this show is performing so well, and I love the musical and the Broadway feel to it. And I'm just, it's such a fun ride. And I know I say that a lot, but this is definitely a fun ride to enjoy. And this episode so far, just like episode 1, 2, and 3, they're giving all these characters a chance to kind of shine. Like, Agatha's the star, but to see Allison in this get her moment to somewhat find peace with her mom in this was really awesome. And they kind of start bonding a little bit too, if you notice, before they went into the next house. Now, it was just a little bond, but they're they're trying to understand each other, and then they're trying to figure out who is Rio. And so Alice sees this house, right? It appears, and she tries to turn back, but the road won't let her. And you know what I thought was cool is, like I said on the last review, this road, like of a woods, this thing is alive. Like, it has a conscience. It understands what they're doing or saying in a way, and it's preventing them to go off course. And when they do, they face a punishment or a consequence. So we know that if they go way off the road, the path, you can sink in. But if you try to turn back, you can't. You have to go in there. And every challenge leads to death. So this is a... Whew. So we see Allison in a way, kind of like... In a way, she's not ready to face her fears. But they go in there, and then they go in this house, and now they're in a 70s theme where it looks like a house, but also a studio. So if you think about it, it's kind of like California. Like, most big rich houses, they got a studio in there. It's so California in so many ways with this, and I thought that was pretty cool. And also, I just like the 70s theme. They had a 70s outfit get up, like everybody dressed like from the, and like, man, it was just cool to watch. They had the hairstyle, some of the jewelry that they would wear in the 70s, and I think one of them wore the glasses, but it was so cool. Thank you. I love this. And what we found out about this is when they're walking in the 70s theme room, and again, this has an escape room theme too, where there's a lot of clues, and they're different clues. It's not like the one from the last episode. That's a little different. This one's like, they're not drinking wine, they're listening to music, and then they got to play some music. But you know what I noticed too? As they're walking around, Lillian blurts out things, and to me, this indicates that her memories have been erased or washed away or blocked magically. Like, I feel like she was physically there to some of the events that happen into the other witches' past in different centuries. And because one, her and Allison were looking at like the wall and stuff, and then you see this picture of a little girl, of a child, right? And there's flames, and it kind of looks like the typical witch thing where witches eat kids or whatever, like cannibalism. And she kind of tears over that. And then we see like the mask, this like mask on the wall. And I was thinking this could be like a reference to Mephisto, but I also realized like this mask kind of resembles this demon that we see later on in this episode. Then we learn that Allison has a generation curse. Her mother played this version live on stage, like I said earlier, and the crowd was their coverment, and they jammed out to this particular song, and I really like the song, and now they have to play the songs, and the challenges that you see is going to be very difficult. Now, before they even did that, before that, there was a private conversation between Rio and Agatha, and they were reminding each other about this. And then Agatha turned on the I don't know, this microphone that you would see a long time ago in like schools when the principal made an announcement. He hit this button and he says, and the principal makes the announcement and all the classrooms hear it. It was kind of like that, and she tricked Agatha. Agatha tricked Rio and said her things like, "Hey, I need to kill these bodies," and because she's collecting souls. So it's another thing. Like, this is obviously, I know there's leaks and stuff out there about it, but this is obviously, I don't know, I'm just going based off of this episodes and the other ones, that this is obviously Lady Death. Rio is Lady Death. Like, she is the Green Reaper of the MCU and stuff. And, I definitely want to go into a deeper conversation than that, but as I continue on this recap. So, when that happens, then suddenly the teenager finds the first, like, invitation or instructions. But this one was a record player and it said, "Play me." And then it played this really loud sound and they were all going nuts. And they started burning up. But then I believe it was Jennifer or Alice. No, it was Allison who asked Rio to borrow her dagger, and she drew circles around everybody who was catching on fire. And so then they learned that they had to play this song the way that the version that Allison's mom played this song, and do it exactly like that. And great song again. But we see, like, it looked like a music video like that you would see in the 70s. And like they poured all this money in and they had this big music video. And it felt like a 70s theme song, obviously, but it did remind me of like heavy metal moments where Agatha did the flames. There was pyro a little bit. Everybody was playing an instrument. And the funny part was Lillian played the tambourines, and they're small, and it was just funny. Because she was like, "Yeah, I can't play any other instruments." But it was just really cool to see that, and I loved it. But then we finally saw the demon. And again, the face kind of looked like the one on the mask, the demon mask on the wall when they first walked in. And it was flying like a bird, but had a huge bird claws like a hawk or an eagle, or whatever you want to, bird terminology we like to use. And that's how they got the scars, realistically. Like, Allison explains that this curse gives you scars, and then everybody started getting scars because they couldn't see it. This demon was kind of invisible, and that's why. But it was really the demon with the bird feet type. Landed on the shoulder, squeezed it, and then burned them. So this is a very thing, and I really liked how it went. I thought it was gonna be like not really good CGI, but this was pretty legit good. And so shout out to the people who did the CGI and VFX effect. Like, this was amazing, and boy, you guys are men and women who put that together did awesome. Like, I appreciate that. Was a really good looking design of a demon for this particular show, especially on a Disney Plus or just streaming service in general. So that's really cool, and I appreciate it. I applaud them on that. So after they beat that and they finally defeated it, Now the curse is gone. But then we learned that the teenager was hurt really bad. Like there was a piece of glass stabbed into the side of his gut, and so he passed out. But this is the part where we see Agatha show a more softer side to this, and even Rio seemed worried about this, and I thought that was very interesting. Like Agatha even looked at Rio and said, "Please, please." Like I think Rio was gonna take his soul because technically he was dead, but Jennifer saves him with a potion, and and it was water, and then she had to put it underneath the moonlight, and she said a witch enchantment, and then he was fine. But then they start hanging out and they start bonding. So Jennifer reveals that she's a midwife to I believe a husband, or just the man, but she revealed that whatever she was bond on her, like put a curse on her with no magic, so she can't do magic. And she doesn't know how it happened, it seems, or how it all started. But Rio and Agatha have a deep conversation because they were showing each other scars. Like, I got scars here, and Agatha mentions where she got stabbed in the elbow. And then Rio mentions a scar about how she had to do her job because she was told, and she had to take a child. And it was somebody she cared about. And she felt betrayed, basically. And that's the scar. Her scar is the person she loved, which is kind of indicated that Agatha and Rio were once lovers. And it seems like the teenager was like their child. So Agatha's like, hey, I gotta stretch my legs out. And then Rio follows her, and they have this really intimate moment. And I'm like, she told him, like, hey, that's my boy, And it was just, that's how this ended. So it could be her legit son, maybe. But here's the thing that I'm concerned about, or not concerned, but a little worried, because this is what Star Wars kind of put themselves in the Acolytes. Like, where's the father? And it's not a big deal, but if you're gonna have to say that magic conjured this up, it's got to make sense. Now Marvel has an extra advantage to really explain that, so it's not a really big deal in the sense. I just want to make that clear. Like, it's not something I'm gonna hate on or be upset, but I'm thinking, okay, how do witches give birth with magic instead of with a male, right? And so there's ways, but with Marvel, they got magic. Like Star Wars has magic too, but Star Wars is in a live series, they haven't really been cleared with it. In books and comic books, yes, they're very clear with how that works. So, but Marvel has an advantage because there's different ways they could explain this. And I can tell you different ways. Like, example, I believe in a theory, an idea, that this teenager, could be a variant from a different multiverse and somehow got to Marvel, the MCU, Earth 616. And I also keep that in mind too, that if that's the way, because I said I'm noticing patterns that the magic with the witches is a parallel in some ways to the multiverse worlds when it comes to the TVA, right? Like this, the way the TVA explains it, and the way Deadpool and Wolverine explains it, of having variants, because like the Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine is a variant of Wolverine, but it's not the Wolverine from Old Man Logan. This ain't the Wolverine from the X-Men First Class or the original X-Men movies back in the days. Like, it's not that technically Wolverine, but this Wolverine has parallel events that are very similar to Wolverine that we've seen in all the movies so far. So this could be the universe he's from could be very, very close and identical of the same events, but slightly different, where you can kind of notice, but not really notice, right? Or it could be like in WandaVision where her brother was alive, but at the end it wasn't really her brother. It was just some guy that lived in the neighborhood. So it could be that, right? I always keep that in mind. And you know what? That one has a higher chance of that actually being a thing. Like maybe that person, this teenager, is actually not Wanda's son. It's not Agatha's son. It's not Rio's son. It's just somebody who lived in Westview that just, because of this hex and this magic curse or whatever, is making this individual believe that he's a different person that is related to these characters in that way. So that's a strong possibility of that being that. Now let's talk about another topic that is what I'm bringing up is the curse on the teenager. Now, it's basically the only way it can happen is somebody has to curse on somebody, but they lose their memory to him or her, and that individual lose their memory to the other person. And the only way it can be broken is when it's no longer needed. So when does it be no longer needed is the question. So I have two theories that can go two ways with this. The first way is I believe Agatha probably did. And I believe that she did that because she made this is her son, and she traded him to Mephisto for the book with that has all the dark magic in it, right? The second one is when you know how I said that this person might not be that actual person, like they did in WandaVision with Wanda's brother. Maybe these witches killed his parents, his actual parents, and he put this curse on himself and then put it on her so he can find a way to get closer to her, not to show any suspicion. And she can't know why he's really there, but some way, somehow, when it's no longer needed, he will remember and get his revenge back on her. Maybe not, maybe eliminated her to death, dead, right? But that's one way it can go. And then what I feel on that is I don't think it'd be the second one because that's really pushing it. And that's a far stretch. And how would that make sense in like future other shows? So I have to believe that this is Agatha's son. And I also believe this is Rio's son too. Like, again, they're really showing that they've been lovers at one point. And you know what's also I noticed? I think these events happen in different centuries. I didn't think it all happened in one century. I think it happened in different time periods. Because if he's like 18 or I think he's underage. He's not old. It's been confirmed that he's not old enough to drink the wine. So he's a minor. So it'd have to be uh, somewhere in the 2000s, you know, maybe 2022 or the year 2020. I'm not sure. Maybe 2019. But it's got to be something like that. Now, why do I think when they first met, they probably first met in like the 1800s. And maybe it was a different time. Maybe it took them a while to do that. Maybe because maybe this was the time where witches were recognized and people were, trying to burn witches, right? So I believe that's when they were in that era. But how and when did they fall in love and decide to have a child is the question. But if I had to guess, I would say I would believe when they get to like a modern era time, that's when I think things started changing because they weren't living in the 1800s. They were living in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, maybe the 50s. So I think that's where it's kind of going. And I also believe that it's kind of indicating too that there's stuff that Agatha has done, and Rio's probably the only one who knows it and actually remembers it. I think the other witches, their memory's been erased from that particular moment, and they only remember what they are allowed to know due to whatever curse that is existing in Westview. Because now nothing's really making sense to it, but that's okay because this is a mystery show, and the mysteries usually come out at the last episode for that season. So that's pretty typical Marvel stuff. Now let's talk about Agatha and Rio. Now again, I think these two are lovers at one point. Do I think they will get back together? I would say no, not right now. If Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige himself felt like to continue on these characters in a season 2, for example, that's where I think that type of story would start off, would be themed around for a season 2. But for this, I would say no, they're not going to get back together because there's no particular reason to. And I don't think this is going to be a one season thing where Agatha resolves all her issues with Rio. I still think she's going to be a villain. And I think Rio is going to be a main villain too with this as well. So I don't think they're done, but I do think one of these two are going to be part of the Midnight Sun group if once they do that live action. And I can kind of see it coming. And it's just whenever they can get this Blade movie popping off, that's where I think it'll start all connected for this. But that's where I think they're going. I don't think they're going to find a happy ending on season 1 between the two relationship. Now, do I think Rio's Lady Death, based off these episodes, not the leaks? Yes. Now, is she the main Lady Death? I would say yeah, because again, it's not a Marvel character that people just know. Like the mainstream audience, the casual fans, whatever you want to call them. It's not that. So for Lady Death to show up in a live action Marvel in the MCU, basically, it wouldn't have a big impact like a Robbie Downey Jr. or I think more people are more concerned about when Blade's coming out, the Fantastic Four, Thor, any other Marvel stuff, Secret Wars, Avengers, Doomsday, like that's where everybody's kind of waiting for, and they're not interested in anything else that don't relate to those upcoming projects, unfortunately. But for comic book fans, this is a big deal. But I think this is how far Lady Death will go. And I also have a theory that I just want to point out too. That I think if this is Lady Death, right, the main Lady Death, I believe that she looks like what she looks like now, but I think she takes different formations, different appearance. Just depends where she's at. Like I don't think she would look like what she looks like now on this show if she was on a different planet that you would see in a Garden Galaxy movie. She would look like a alien species of some sort. Like she's not going to talk to Rocket in that form, or some or Groot, right? I just don't see that. I think she, like, even in Thor, I think she would have a different look. It could be Aubrey Plaza playing that character, but I think she'll have a different appearance formation to fit the concept of what planet they're on. Like, if she was in a Thor movie, she'd probably look like more like a guy in the sense of it. Like a Zeus, a Hades, whatever. Just something that type. Because I think she's powerful than what people are realizing based on these episodes, obviously. I think that's one thing, too, is she's going to look different all the time. And I think that'd be kind of cool. But she'll still have the same personality in the sense, but it just depends who she's dealing with. And, this again, this is just a theory. I don't know where Kevin Feige stands and how much he cares about this particular character. Like, does it deserve to be in other Marvel films or shows? I don't really know if he agrees with that, because when we get the White Vision series, which is just Vision in an all-white bodysuit or body itself, I don't think it necessarily needs her, but it would definitely need some of the witches. And then, like, Wanda, of course, if they can pull that off, which I think they could. But that's where I got out of all this. Now, my favorite thing about this episode, again, was just the singing. And I just love the actresses and actor who's on this show. They're just doing such a great job. And I love where this is going, but there is so much more I want to know about them. And that's what's intriguing about these characters in this show so far, is this show is really good at making you want to know more about them and their past. And it's getting a lot of love, and I'm loving it as well. So that's one of my favorite things about that, too, again, is just them. And again, the singing. And I just like how they're using this escape room format to this show. Like, there's always the clue, and they got to find out. And I also have an idea of a theory, too, that I want to share before I let this go. Is another thing about Rio is I believe Mrs. Davis and Rio are the same person. I think she's a variant version of Rio as an older version, and that's how she came from the ground. Because I can't remember if she came out of the ground where they buried Mrs. Davis or Mrs. Blackheart. So I don't know, but if that was the case, then I think that's a variant, and that's why I say this magic is very parallel to the multiverse rules, according to like the Loki series and the TVA and Deadpool and Wolverine film. So that's where I get out of it. But this is just my theories, man. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments below, so let me know. But that is my review, guys. If I had to give this a 1 out of 10, I'm giving this a 10. What a great show. What a great episode. I love the background. I love the color to it. I love the dark, spooky theme to it. And I loved how everything ended. And I like where this is going. And I can't wait to see more of it. So that's my review, y'all. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Subscribe. Hit that notification button so you can always be updated with all my latest content Thank you guys, and peace out.